Well, our next speaker is Ann Coulter, her new book is called Never Trust a Liberal Over Three, Especially a Republican. Ann Coulter started out as a New York City lawyer, then worked for the Senate Judiciary Committee and as a litigator with the Center for Individual Rights in Washington, D.C. Now she's a syndicated columnist with Universal Press Syndicate and the legal correspondent for Human Events. Author of 10 New York Times bestsellers and one of the most popular guests on Fox, CNN, NBC, ABC, and HBO. It is a privilege and very special event to have her with us today. Please welcome Ann Coulter.
But I'm so happy I finally get to meet you, Ann. Actually, I'm not that welcome a guest on several of the stations she just mentioned. Things change. You really want to cement your career in TV. Be sure to speak only in cliches and make bad arguments when you're on liberal TV. You will be invited back over and over again. I want to just start by saying things aren't as bad as they seem. They seem pretty bad. It seems like we're in the middle of the Democrats' 1,000-year Reich. But when I was as depressed as I've ever been in my life, and I'm including my parents dying after Obama won the second time, beating Romney, I was going through my mother happened to have had the largest North American collection of clippings about Ann Coulter. So I was going through them, and I came across the Time magazine that came out immediately after George Bush won re-election in 2004, which should be of tremendous interest to this audience since you were all in kindergarten then. So you probably don't have that issue. And it was the exact mirror opposite of what everyone was saying after this last election, which is to say Democrats are going to have to fold up shop, come back under a new name. They've lost 5 of the last 7 presidential elections. The reason my mother had it was there's a huge smiling picture of me, winner. Sad picture of Michael Moore, loser. So, you know, to read that magazine, it really sort of lifted my spirits to remember that the pendulum does change, but it takes activists like you and people talking and writing and arguing to make things change. Remember, Obama, well, he did win twice, but he has 2 characteristics that no other Democrat has. Number 1, no record. That's big. And likability. On no record, the history of Democrats is they're always going down based on what they did with Michael Dukakis when you weren't even a twinkle in your father's eye. Michael Dukakis, it was Willie Horton. You remember John Kerry throwing the medals over, well, maybe you don't remember, throwing his Vietnam, somebody else's medals over the White House lawn and sliming his fellow Vietnam comrades. With Obama, it was perfect. They had a 14-year-old with no record. And he's very likable. You have to admit it. He's the most charismatic person the Democrats have run for president in my lifetime. I hear people thought John F. Kennedy was charismatic, but Obama is definitely the best they've produced in my lifetime. I think the only people that you're going to have fainting at a Hillary Clinton rally will be the chubby gals from now who can't take the heat. But Americans just keep telling pollsters they really like Obama personally. He's the sort of person you wish you could like his policies. Obama would probably make a great next-door neighbor, unless you were Chinese, in which case he'd always be over borrowing something. Borrowing. But I think after the mess he's made for the past 8 years, Republicans have a pretty good chance in 2016, provided they run someone slightly better than Todd Akin. I think we have a very good chance, especially if they talk a lot about Obamacare. I've so far this year spent, I think I added it up, it was approximately 1 million hours trying to find a health care plan for myself. I'm self-employed, so I'm one of the few Americans actually subjected to the provisions of Obamacare. And the entire time I was mumbling about my liberal friend, who unfortunately is a hypochondriac and therefore wants the entire national budget spent on health care, and that is blogger Mickey Kaus. And so for all 1 million hours, I kept saying, screw you, Mickey Kaus, screw you, Mickey Kaus, screw you, said it was going to be great. And the title of my column was, Screw You, Mickey Kaus. I realized right as I was sending it out, I'd forgotten to mention to him that it was coming. So I sent him an email saying, oh, by the way, I mentioned you in my column this week. He read the column and he said, yeah, you make good points, but what is so brilliant about this column is you're going to have every liberal in the country pouring through Obamacare web pages to find a good plan for you now. But I emailed him back, and I was right. That's impossible. It is mathematically impossible for Obamacare to fund the uninsured, to pay for everyone's smoking cessation programs and marital counseling, and, you know, aromatherapy, hearing therapy, speech therapy, and also pay for my cancer treatment. No, something has to go, and apparently it's the paying insurers' cancer treatments or whatever. Nancy Pelosi has said, you know, we had to pass Obamacare to find out what's in it. Well, okay, we found out. And now we really don't like it. Recall that Obamacare became law not because the American people were clamoring for the federal government, please, please, take over our health care. No, it was because one party had 60 votes. The Democrats always do this. The worst things that have been passed in American history are when, because of some fluke in history, Watergate, John McCain, they end up with an inordinately large majority, and suddenly, oh, they've got a to-do list. Republicans never have a to-do list. George Bush had a Republican House and Senate for, what, the first 6 years of his presidency. What did we get done? No, Obamacare passed with one party sneering, ha ha, we've got 60 votes. The history of liberalism is passing things that sound good on paper to replace things that actually work. Americans kept saying, really, really, do we have to replace our health care? But liberals explained, no. My roommate and I were both Rhodes Scholars, and we worked it all out on paper. So now our entire healthcare system is going to be run by the same people who run the Department of Motor Vehicles. You know? Yes, you know those incredibly long lines. Now imagine you're standing in one of those lines, but you're wearing a paper hospital gown, open and back. That's Obamacare. Thank you, liberals. The Democrats' only defense to this monstrosity, and you hear it all the time, is, well, Republicans don't have a plan. What's their plan? Tell me what your plan is. They don't have a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan. It's a little something I've been working on. I call it free market capitalism. My idea is we let individuals shop for health insurance on the free market. Now, bear with me here. I know this sounds crazy. But the history of the world is everything provided on the free market gets better and cheaper over time. Everything provided by the government gets worse and more expensive over time. Government gave us the post office, public schools. That was one of my annoyances during the government shutdown. I kept seeing people on Fox News, no less, saying, you know, when something is failing, you don't get in the way. Well, no, the public school system has failed, and it's still with us. You apparently have to kick up quite a fuss to get rid of crap-ass government programs. Social Security, a Ponzi scheme you would be put in jail for doing if you were in the private sector. Oh, and by the way, it's now bankrupt. Earned income tax credits, the most fraud-ridden program in history, and that's saying something. Oh, and my favorite, the Amtrak food service. For those of you on the East Coast, you're familiar with Amtrak. It's a total monopoly. You are trapped on the train, and if you forgot to get food before getting on the train, you just wait for the announcement that you can't really hear, but you hope they're saying the food service car is open. So you can go stand in line for 40 minutes to get a 2-week-old turkey sandwich for $30. Last year, Amtrak food service alone lost $72 million. How do